Chapter 1. The storm had come without warning. One moment the mountain pass lay open beneath a pale winter sky, the wind sharp but manageable. The next, the world closed in on itself, snow spiraling down from the heavens, wind screaming like a living thing, white swallowing stone, path, and horizon alike. Cassian should have turned back. He knew that. He had known it before the first snow struck his face, before the air turned cruel and biting, before the silence of the high pass felt wrong in a way that set his wolf on edge. But Alpha Kings did not turn back. Not when the border had been breached. Not when the scent of rogues still lingered in the air. Not when his people slept believing the mountain paths were secure. His boots sank deep into the snow as he moved forward, cloak torn and heavy with ice. Blood seeped slowly through the dark fabric at his side, warm for only a moment before the cold claimed it. The fight had been quick, violent, necessary. 3 rogues, desperate, starving, reckless enough to test the borders of the northern kingdom in winter. They had not expected the Alpha King himself. Cassian exhaled through his teeth as pain flared again, sharp and bright beneath his ribs. He ignored it, as he had ignored worse. His wolf paced restlessly beneath his skin, pushing, urging, demanding speed. Then the ground shifted beneath his foot. His vision blurred just for a heartbeat, and the world tilted. Cassian dropped to one knee. Snow gathered instantly on his lashes, his hair, his shoulders. The wind roared louder now, drowning out everything else. He forced himself upright again, breath coming heavier, each inhale burning his lungs. "Move!" his wolf snarled. He took 2 more steps. That was all. His strength gave out without ceremony, his body striking the frozen ground hard enough to knock the air from his chest. Pain bloomed, distant, oddly muted, as the storm closed over him completely. For the first time in many years, Cassian Thorn, Alpha King of the Northern Wolves, could not rise. His wolf howled inside him, fury and warning and something else he could not name. The cold crept deeper, wrapping his limbs in numbness, pulling him towards stillness. Through the white haze of snow, a scent reached him. Pine, smoke, and something wild, old, powerful, unmistakably alpha. His eyes snapped open. At the edge of his failing vision, a shape moved through the storm, low to the ground, fast, deliberate, gray fur streaked with silver. A wolf. But larger than most. Stronger. Female. She stopped a few paces from him, snow clinging to her coat, eyes bright and assessing. Not afraid. Not hesitant. Cassian tried to speak. No sound came. The wolf tilted her head, studying him, then stepped closer. Her gaze locked onto his. Sharp, knowing, and something ancient shifted between them. The bond struck without warning. Not gentle, not subtle. A sudden, violent recognition that ripped through him and settled deep in his bones. Mate. The word echoed through him as darkness pulled at the edges of his vision. Hands, strong, sure, gripped his shoulders as the wolf shifted. A woman's voice cut through the storm.
"Don't die. I'm not dragging a corpse through this snow."
Darkness claimed him. Chapter 2. Cassian surfaced slowly. Pain came first, deep, insistent, threaded through every breath. Not the sharp blaze of fresh wounds, but the heavy ache of something bound too tightly, forced to stay still when every instinct screamed to rise and fight. Warmth followed. That alone set his wolf snarling. Firelight flickered behind his closed eyes. The air smelled of pine resin, clean water, and dried herbs. Not the stone and steel of his keep, not the familiar scents of his pack. He opened his eyes. A low ceiling loomed above him, rough-hewn beams darkened by age and smoke. Thick furs lay over his body, heavy and warm. His ribs protested as he shifted. Memory returned in fragments. The storm, the fall, the wolf, her eyes. Cassian pushed himself up on his elbows and immediately regretted it. Pain flared along his side, dragging a sharp sound from his throat. A shadow moved at the edge of his vision.
Sit back.
Not a command, a fact. Cassian turned his head. She stood near the hearth, sleeves rolled to her elbows, dark hair braided loosely down her back. Firelight traced the lines of her face, strong cheekbones, steady eyes, a mouth set like she didn't waste words. A bowl rested in her hand, a strip of cloth in the other, stained dark with blood. My blood, his wolf noted. Cassian straightened despite the pain, shoulders squaring out of habit.
Where am I?
She crossed the room and set the bowl down. Her fingers went to the binding at his side, checking the tightness with practiced hands. Alpha pressure rolled off him without permission. Instinctive, commanding, meant to force submission. She didn't flinch. Her hands didn't falter. Cassian went very still.
You should step back.
She lifted her brow, unimpressed.
You're injured, half frozen, and lying on my table. If you want to have a go, do it after you can stand.
She pressed near the wound, not cruel, just efficient. Cassian drew a sharp breath. She stepped back and wiped her hands on a cloth.
You lost a fair amount of blood. The cut was deep, but clean. You'll heal.
Her eyes flicked to his face.
And before you ask, yes, I know who you are.
Cassian studied her now. No pack scent clung to her. No markings of rank. No visible allegiance. And yet her presence filled the cabin with quiet authority.
You know who I am. And you still brought me here.
A faint curve touched her mouth. Practical, not warm.
I wasn't going to let an alpha bleed out in the snow, even if he is a king.
The bond pulsed between them, quiet and coiled.
What is your name?
Tala.
The name settled into him like something he'd been missing without knowing it. Outside, the wind howled again, rattling the shutters. Tala turned away, reached for another blanket, and draped it over him with careful hands.
You'll stay here until the storm breaks, and until you're strong enough to walk.
Cassian watched her over the edge of his exhaustion.
And after that?
She glanced back, expression unreadable.
After that, you'll leave.
His wolf didn't like that. Cassian didn't argue, not yet. Chapter 3. Night settled slowly over the mountains. The storm didn't ease. It grew louder, wind clawing at the cabin walls, snow piling high against the door until the world beyond was sealed away entirely. The fire burned low and steady, casting shadows that stretched across rough timber. Cassian lay still, listening. Not to the storm, to her. Tala moved with quiet purpose. She banked the fire, rinsed the bowl, laid out dried herbs on a narrow shelf. Everything about her spoke of routine and self-reliance. Cassian watched her for a long moment.
You live alone.
Yes.
No pack.
Tala paused.
No.
Outside, the wind struck the shutters hard enough to rattle them.
You could have left me. No one would have known.
I know.
Silence settled again, heavier this time. Cassian's wolf stirred, not with hunger, not with pain, but with something far more dangerous. Need, recognition, the urge to close distance, to anchor, to claim. He held it back with effort.
Why didn't you?
Tala lifted her eyes to his. Something flickered there. Old grief, perhaps. Memory.
Because I know what it is to be left.
The words landed like a hand closing around his throat. Later, Tala returned with another blanket and draped it over him, careful of his ribs. Her fingers brushed his shoulder. The bond surged, sharp and sudden, and Cassian's breath caught. She froze. Their eyes held. The cabin felt too small.
You feel it.
Yes,
Her jaw tightened.
that doesn't mean anything.
Cassian's wolf bared its teeth at the lie.
It means everything.
Tala shook her head once, as if refusing her own instincts.
It means danger, it means loss, and it means you'll leave when the storm breaks.
Cassian's gaze didn't move.
I don't leave what is mine.
The words slipped out, instinct wearing his mouth like a weapon. The air went cold. Tala straightened, all softness gone.
I am not yours.
Cassian held the stare.
No, you're not.
Tala turned away, returning to her chair.
Sleep.
Cassian obeyed, not because she told him to, but because his body demanded it. As sleep dragged him under, one thing remained clear. The storm was not the most dangerous thing trapping them in this cabin. Chapter 4. Cassian woke before dawn. Not from pain, though it still lingered. A dull, insistent ache beneath the bindings, but from instinct. The kind that dragged him from sleep before his thoughts caught up, his wolf alert and watchful. Something had changed. The storm still raged outside, but inside the cabin the air felt charged, heavy. The fire had burned low, embers glowing faintly. Tala stood near the hearth, her back to him, one hand braced against the stone. She was breathing hard. Cassian didn't move, didn't speak. Every instinct told him to watch. Her braid had come loose in the night, dark hair spilling down her back. Firelight traced tension through her shoulders, her spine held rigid as if she were holding something back by sheer will. Power rolled off her in quiet waves. Not alpha pressure, something older, something deeper. It raised the hackles of his wolf. She drew a slow breath and pressed her palm flat against the stone. Frost crept outward beneath her hand, delicate and sharp, spreading across the hearth in fine white veins. Cassian's eyes narrowed. No ordinary wolf did that. She swore under her breath and pulled her hand away. The frost vanished instantly, stone warm once more, as if it had never been there. Tala straightened.
You're awake.
I am.
She turned, studying him with an expression he hadn't seen before, wary, measuring, like a warrior deciding whether to strike or retreat.
You shouldn't have seen that.
I see a great many things.
She snorted at that, though there was no humor in it.
For someone who nearly died in the snow, you're remarkably observant.
Cassian shifted carefully, pushing himself higher against the pillows.
That wasn't healer magic.
He paused.
And it wasn't ordinary alpha strength.
Silence stretched between them, taut and dangerous. She didn't deny it. Instead, Tala moved to the narrow window and stared out at the white, blinded world beyond.
There are reasons I live alone.
There are reasons someone with power like yours wouldn't survive long if discovered.
Her jaw tightened.
Yes.
Cassian let the answer settle before continuing.
There are also reasons the Northern Council wiped out a bloodline capable of shaping winter itself.
She turned slowly. The look she gave him was sharp enough to cut.
Choose your next words very carefully.
They believed that the bloodline was extinct.
The bond stirred, not flaring, but pulling, drawing threads together that had been loose and unseen. Recognition flickered in Tala's eyes. Not fear. Resignation.
They were wrong.
The words landed like a blade sliding home.
Your veil blood.
Not a question. Tala drew a measured breath.
My mother was.
Cassian's wolf went utterly still. The Vale line had been ancient even before the kingdoms took shape, wolves born with dominion over cold, storm, and stone. Alphas among alphas, too powerful to bend, too dangerous to control. They had been slaughtered for it.
They killed everyone.
Tala's mouth curved, bitter and sharp.
They thought they did.
She turned away, arms folding across her chest.
She made me hide it, taught me how to survive without getting notice.
A pause.
She died making sure I lived.
The cabin felt smaller than ever. Cassian's chest tightened, not with pain this time, but with something heavier.
You've been running ever since.
She didn't answer, didn't need to.
And now you've saved an Alpha King in a storm.
Her laugh was quiet and humorless.
Yeah, well, apparently I make poor choices.
No,
The bond hummed, warm and insistent.
you made the right one.
She stiffened.
Don't.
You feel it.
I feel danger.
Cassian's wolf rose within him.
No, you feel home.
The word hung between them, fragile and forbidden. Outside, the storm howled, but beneath it, something else answered. A long, distant howl echoed through the mountains. Cassian's head snapped toward the sound. Not one voice. Many. Tala felt it too. Her posture shifted instantly, alert and ready.
They've found me.
No panic, just certainty. Cassian swung his legs over the side of the bed, pain flaring but irrelevant.
Then they found us.
Chapter 5. The howls came again. Closer this time. Cassian felt them as much as he heard them, vibrations rolling through the mountain stone, through bone and blood. Trained wolves, not rogues, disciplined, coordinated, moving with purpose. Hunters. Tala was already moving. She crossed the cabin in swift, silent strides, pulling a long blade from beneath the work table. The steel caught the firelight, pale and sharp as ice.
They won't stop. They never do.
Cassian pushed to his feet, pain flaring hot and bright through his ribs. His vision swam for a moment, then cleared as his wolf surged forward, lending strength where flesh alone faltered.
How many?
Enough.
Snow slammed against the shutters as another howl cut through the night, answered by two more, one to the east, one to the south. They were surrounding the cabin. Cassian tested his weight, jaw tightening as his body protested. Tala noticed.
You shouldn't be standing.
They shouldn't have come.
She studied him for a heartbeat, not doubting his strength, but measuring his limits.
If they see you shift.
They won't.
Cassian reached for the door. Tala caught his wrist. Her grip was iron.
They're here for me.
Cassian turned slowly, meeting her gaze.
Then they've made a fatal mistake.
The bond tightened, pulling hard now, not demanding, not burning, aligning. Tala released him. Outside, shapes moved through the snow, dark forms circling the clearing with practiced ease. Wolves shifted at the tree line, breath steaming, eyes glowing pale in the stormlight. A voice rang out, human, amplified by magic.
Veil blood, you can't hide forever.
Tala stepped forward, blade low, shoulders squared.
Watch me.
The first hunter lunged. Cassian moved without thought. His shift tore through him in a rush of heat and bone. Pain drowned beneath power as fur replaced flesh, and claws struck frozen ground. He hit the hunter mid-leap, sending both of them crashing into the snow. Chaos erupted. Wolves clashed, snarls tearing through the night as steel flashed and magic cracked the air. Cassian fought with ruthless efficiency, injury forgotten, his wolf driven by one truth alone: protect. Tala moved like winter itself. Where she stepped, frost followed, not uncontrolled, not wild, but precise. She raised her hand, and the ground beneath a hunter's feet locked solid, ice snapping up to trap him mid-stride. She brought her blade down without hesitation. A spell struck from the tree line, slamming toward her back. Cassian saw it an instant too late. He threw himself between them. Pain exploded through his side as magic tore into flesh already wounded. He hit the ground hard, breath ripped from his lungs. The bond screamed. Tala turned. Something broke.
No!
Power surged out of her in a blinding wave, the storm answering her call. The wind howled louder, snow spiraling violently as ice tore upward from the earth in jagged spires. Hunters cried out as the ground froze beneath them, weapons slipping from numbed fingers. Tala stood at the center of it, eyes blazing silver, winter bending to her will.
Enough.
The mountain obeyed. The last of the hunters fled, scrambling into the trees, terror driving them faster than any command. Silence fell. Cassian struggled to rise, blood dark against the snow. Tala was at his side in an instant, hands shaking as she pressed them to his wound.
Stay with me.
Her voice cracked just once. Cassian's hand closed over hers.
I told you. I don't leave.
The bond snapped into place. Not a blaze. Not a storm. A deep, unshakable certainty. Tala felt it. Solid, grounding, wrapping around her power instead of trying to cage it. She bowed her head, forehead resting against his.
Then don't.
The storm began to ease. Above them, the clouds thinned, moonlight spilling pale and clear across the snow. Winter had chosen. The conclusion. What remains? Morning came softly. Not with sun. The mountains rarely offered such generosity in winter, but with a thinning of cloud, a hush in the wind, the world holding its breath after violence. The storm was gone. Snow lay smooth and unbroken around the cabin, save for the scars of battle already half hidden beneath fresh powder. No tracks remained of the hunters who had fled. The mountain had swallowed them whole. Cassian lay on the bed once more, stripped of bloodied layers and wrapped in clean furs. The pain was still there, but distant now, muted beneath the steady thrum of the bond. Steady, present, unbreakable. Tala sat beside him, mortar and pestle resting idle in her hands. She hadn't slept. Cassian knew that without opening his eyes. He could feel her awareness like a quiet warmth at his side, a constant thread tying him to the world. He shifted slightly.
You're still here.
Not an accusation, not surprise. Relief.
And so are you.
He opened his eyes then, turning his head just enough to see her properly. The silver glow was gone from her gaze, replaced by something more human, tired, wary, real.
You could still run.
She huffed softly.
Yes, I could.
A pause.
But I won't.
The words settled between them, heavier than any oath. Cassian studied her, his voice careful now.
They'll keep coming.
I know.
And if you come with me?
They'll follow.
Cassian nodded once.
Then I'll stop them.
She met his gaze fully this time, searching.
I won't kneel.
I wouldn't ask you to.
The bond warmed, approving. Cassian reached for her hand. She let him.
My people believe the Vale bloodline ended in betrayal and blood.
They weren't wrong about the blood.
They were wrong about the betrayal.
Tala's fingers tightened around his.
If I stand beside you, it will not be as a symbol, not as a secret.
Good.
A corner of her mouth lifted.
And I don't do subtle.
Even better.
Outside, light crept higher over the mountains, catching the frost she had shaped the night before. Not wild now, but beautiful, deliberate. Cassian watched it through the window.
the North will fear you.
They should.
Silence followed. Not strained, not uncertain. Comfortable. Cassian shifted again, testing his strength. Tala scowled.
Don't.
I have to walk back.
No, you have to heal first.
He smiled faintly.
I heal faster when you're near.
She rolled her eyes.
That's not how it works.
But she didn't move away. Cassian squeezed her hand gently.
Come with me. Not as my queen. Not yet.
Tala considered him for a long moment. Then,
I'll walk beside you.
that was enough. Outside, the mountain stood silent and watchful. Winter had not loosened its grip, but it had chosen its own. If you enjoyed this story, you may also like love between an alpha king and a fae. Thank you for listening. More stories are coming.